Welcome to Only One You Need Radio. We're not the only one you need. You are. We just show you how to get out of your own way. With your host, speaker, author, business coach, and consultant, David Dubé.
Welcome to Only One You Need Radio. It's your host, David Dubé. So excited to have you here with me today. In this episode, my friend, we are going to be talking about the 4 communication styles and why knowing this information is so invaluable and what it can absolutely do for you to change your life to what you want. Not only your life, but your relationships and your relationship lifetimes, because, you know, the lifetime of a relationship can be short depending on the type of communication style you have with that person or individual. So let's get to it, shall we? So in episode 50, I talked about your learning styles. Now, here I want to talk about communication styles. And the importance of knowing these communication styles is the fact that when you begin to understand these communication styles, you can realize which one someone is. And when you realize which one someone is outside of yourself, obviously you should understand which one you are in a given circumstance. But when you realize that, you can bring yourself out of it, or you can bring them out of it. And you can communicate them to a point where communication can become a lot easier. And this is something that we all go through. We all ebb and flow through these types of communication styles and have done so based upon our relationship with certain people. Now, you've never learned these things. No one has ever taught you these things. So all of these things we learn through trial and error in our lives. We've learned them because the people in our lives taught us to treat them this way. And they taught us to treat them this way through trial and error. So let me go through them and make it make sense to you. So as I said in, I believe it was episode 20, where I talked about the 4 stages of learning, which if you haven't heard, go back and listen to that. In this one here, I want to tell you about the communication styles. As you understand them effectively, you can begin to understand why you do these things with certain people you do. First off, in communication, we may have started off as communicating assertively with someone and just being out front and honest with them about XYZ, whatever it is that we want to talk to them about or confront them about. But what happens is, depending on how they reacted to that, we decided that may not have been the right thing to do. And in that not being the right thing to do, then we held it back. And then in holding it back, it finally came out during a totally different conversation. And it became aggressive. Like it was anger that caused it to spew out of us. And now, not only was it aggressive in the way it came across, it's about the point of it. It's about, and it was sharp, it's painful, it's hurt, it was directed, obviously, in a very poor manner or way. So we went from assertive to aggressive. And then finally, that didn't work, right? No matter what we said, it wasn't the right thing. And so we became passive altogether. We decided to hold it in altogether and just not let it out. But what happened was, in our holding it in, we took it out on them in other ways. And as opposed to communicating what those other things are, we just let it come out as we started to not be helpful in other aspects of life. So we didn't do our chores, or we would do our chores, but we would overdo things and ruin things because of it, or what have you. So we're taking out our anger on the main subject on other things in our relationship. So the 4 of these altogether is assertive, aggressive, passive, and then passive aggressive. And we are taught these things not because anyone gave us a book and said, read this, you will know how to communicate better by doing so. No, we were taught this based on interaction with people in our lives. And these are the ways that we end up dealing with certain people because of how either they make us feel because we allow them to have power over us, or conversely, how we make them feel. So now that you know what these communication styles are, you can better use them and maybe understand where you are based on your relationship with someone else and why you do that. And it's interesting too that over the course of relationship terms, so you're in a relationship with someone, in the first, 3 months, 6 months, maybe you're very assertive with them and you're open and honest and upfront with everything that comes along. But over the course of time, you become passive and then passive aggressive with them. Only for the fact that you're afraid to change the relationship dynamics, or because something changes. Like, our relationships evolve. So the way we relate to people ends up evolving as well. And in that relating to them, these things will also change too. How we act around them, what we do and say around them will change. And so you can go from assertive to passive aggressive. And it's interesting. And sometimes the reason is for the give and takes in the relationship. If you're in a relationship with someone, an intimate relationship with them, you may become passive aggressive because your needs aren't being fulfilled elsewhere in your relationship. And because it's not being fulfilled elsewhere in the relationship, the communication in general will move from one of these to another one of these until that barrier has been broken. When that barrier is broken, everything will come back, and then you will have that assertive communication style again. But when other needs aren't being met, that passive aggressiveness will come into play, and people will act differently because of it. So it's very interesting to watch as a relationship evolves and see how it ebbs and flows between them. And you can directly correlate them to aspects of the relationship. So if it's about intimacy, if intimacy levels aren't being met. So where in a relationship before you were having intimate relations maybe once a week or once every other week, or maybe a couple times a week or a couple times a day, whatever it is. When you go from having that to not having that, there's a breakdown in the relationship. Now, you're not going to notice it. It's not going to be something that you can necessarily physically see, but you can hear it in the communication. And so when you're aware of that, you will see how the ebb and flows of communication occur based upon those things. And once you can figure that out, you can nip it in the bud. And once you nip it in the bud, guess what? Your relationship changes, and it changes drastically. And guess what? You're back to having effective communication. So these are the 4 communication styles to be aware of, to know of. And now that you understand them and have hopefully a grasp of these, you can begin to know why and where someone is, or why you are the way you are with someone, and then figure out how to change that. You can ebb and flow that so you can be in a better place when it comes to your communication styles. So if you haven't already, do yourself a huge favor and subscribe to this channel. If you're on iTunes, make sure to leave feedback on this channel. Tell us what you think of it. I'd greatly appreciate that. If you're on YouTube, subscribe and get notified. And, well, that being said, it's David Dubé with Only When You Need Radio. It's time that you be the person you're meant to be, believe in all that you're capable of, and finally become more than you thought imaginable. I look forward to catching you on the next episode. Take care.